5 tips I would give to my 20-year-old self. Now I'm 41 and during this time I have gone through completely different experiences in life. I visited 42 countries, was bankrupt, had huge debts and loans, collectors, did successful and unsuccessful businesses. There was a lot of things. Over these years I've made a lot of different conclusions, and today I'm ready to save you 20 years of life and give you advice that I would have given to myself at 20 years old. Be sure to watch this video to the end, because the last tip will be as unexpected as possible and I think you haven't even thought about it. First tip: don't be afraid to make mistakes. Since childhood we have been scolded for mistakes, for bad grades, for doing something wrong. But in fact, the number of mistakes leads us to the result. The more mistakes we make, the better the next result. When I was a child, I was constantly scolded for getting my clothes dirty, for not cleaning properly, for not walking with the dog, for bringing home bad grade. I was constantly scolded and I began to be afraid to do anything lest I make a mistake. It's impossible to cook soup perfectly on the first try. It's impossible to build a business perfectly on the first try. And the number of your mistakes make you more and more versatile. You know more and more options for what doesn't work. If you were scolded for mistakes as a child, just like me, and now as an adult you have noticed that you are afraid to start something new, then like the video now if you are ready to change this, if you now have insight, and if you finally want a breakthrough. How to overcome the fear of making mistakes? In fact, there is nothing to work out here. If you don't try, you will forever remain at the point where you are now. And it's really worse than making a mistake. Imagine your life in 10 years and you have the same day as today. If you're happy with today and want exactly the same day in 10 years, then you're already great, well done, and you don't need to change anything in life. But if you're scared to think that in 10 years you will be in the same job with the same person at the same weight in the same city, which means it's much scarier to stay here and not try. So don't think about the fear of making a mistake, but think about the fact that we will forever remain at this point. It's much scarier. The second tip I would give to my 20-year-old self is to learn something new every day. You know, the world doesn't stand still, the world is developing very quickly. And even yesterday's information, it instantly becomes outdated. When I started running my first business, I took a lot of courses on how to properly manage Instagram, how to properly make videos, post stories, write text, and so on and so forth. And after a while, literally a year later, I suddenly realized that all this no longer works. The world has changed, now there are some reels. If you stop learning at any point, especially in your niche or what you do on a daily basis, then you gradually become obsolete and become a dinosaur. Every day you are further and further from today. The baggage of backwardness, it accumulates. That is, if you don't study promotion on Instagram for a year, how it's fashionable now, what trends are, and so on, then in a year you'll just have to catch up by leaps and bounds, go through a lot of courses and constantly catch up. If you make a habit to regularly buy some courses on Instagram development, on some new trends, and communicate with people who are in these trends, then 10 minutes a day will be enough for you. It's like cleaning. You don't throw your socks around, you pick them right away, and you don't have to spend the whole weekend cleaning. The same with training. Choose that niche, choose the business in which you always want to develop, where you don't want to lag behind, where you don't want to catch up, where you want to be at the top of the leaders. And spend 10 minutes a day learning something new. The third tip I would give to my 20-year-old self: develop fine motor skills and draw. At 20, I didn't know what neurographics was, and frankly, I didn't know what fine motor skills were and how they affected our brains. Now, I already know that our brains need to be trained, they need to be given a load, they need to be given exercise. Thanks to fine motor skills, we're animals who have fingertips and who feel and do a lot with these fingers. Through our fingertips, we have a connection with neurons, a connection with the brain, and thanks to fine motor skills, we develop new neural connections, new neural nodes, and accordingly develop our thinking. Note that when a baby does not speak, the first thing the pediatrician advises is not to develop speech, but to develop fine motor skills. Tie shoelaces, sculpt from clay. At any age, training your brain is a necessity. It shouldn't be lazy. So we draw, develop fine motor skills, but drawing is also beautiful, it's also very pleasant. By the way, if you've never tried neurographics, I have good news. You can draw several top neurographics algorithms at a low price. Fears, resentments, for example, fear of big money, and a bunch of other algorithms. Tap the link in the description and start drawing. Fourth tip, travel, even if you don't have much money. In fact, scientists have concluded that children who travel regularly develop much faster than their peers. Why? Because they are constantly in new circumstances, in a new place, and their consciousness is constantly reading new pictures. And even if you cannot travel within the world, you can always travel within your city, within your region, within your country. There are a lot of cool places where you can go. You can even just go to a country hotel that is only 20 miles from your city. Even if you cannot afford a country hotel, go today to a park that you have never been to in your city. In general, you need to change the picture all the time. You constantly need new emotions and impressions because it develops your thinking. It develops your horizons. You see how other people live, how they live in another area, what the architecture is like, what the nature is like here, and it constantly grows you. I have a cool story for you about one of my first businesses, which, by the way, I created thanks to travel. I called my friend and asked her to find me a short trip for 3 days. And she found me a trip that cost 100 euros. It was a trip to the island Kos in Greece. I write to my friend, my acquaintance, and say, "Tell me, why don't you ever talk about such cheap tours?" And she says, "Why should I sell them? It's absolutely unprofitable. The travel agency receives a percentage. It's not profitable for me to sell a tour for 100 when I can sell it for 1,000. The same job and bigger commission." So my husband and I decided to open a travel agency. What do you think we called it? We called it 99 euros because exactly for 100 euros we flew to Greece. And the crowd came to us. What was the main trick? We even didn't make much promotion. Why did we sell the business? Because every day there were 20, 30, 50 people wanting to fly somewhere for 100 euros. And there were much fewer such tours, and people got upset because by the time they arrived, these tours have already been sold out. And I realized that, damn, this is a very sad business. I want to sell a tour to 20, 50 people for 100 euros, but I can physically sell it to 6 or 8 people. And I sold this business to the girl who once helped me buy this tour for 100 euros. The coolest thing is you now can Google and find this travel agency. It's now one of the top best agencies in Russia and has lots of awards. It's still called 99 euros and sells the most economical tours. Sorry for promotion, but it's a real story. Write in the comments what brilliant thoughts or ideas or insights came to you while traveling and how did it change your life. After many trips, I have some new ideas about what to do, what to write down, how to transform the business. Please share what are your insights, and by the way, what are your favorite countries that you regularly travel to? Well, and the advice that you obviously didn't expect to hear, for me at 20 years old, is to plant karmic seeds. Karmic seeds are a technique that will allow you to improve your life in the long term. Karmic seeds need to be planted in those areas in which you yourself are bad. It is very important. If, for example, you are already successful, you already have enough money, it makes no sense to plant seeds in this area. You need to plant seeds in the area that lags behind. For example, for you this is health. You must help those people who are even sicker than you. This technique works perfectly in training. When I feel that I don't have a great mentor, that I don't have a person who is bigger than me, who would help me, who would support me, what do I start doing? I start helping people who still earn less, who have less success, and I help them absolutely sincerely, absolutely free of charge. I don't demand anything in return from them, and surprisingly, how this technique works, mentors come on their own. Some large-scale person appears. A businessman, an entrepreneur, a blogger who begins to help me absolutely free of charge, give me advice, raise me. And I see how it works right away. Once I help someone, I get mentors. Karmic seeds are a technique that works in all areas of life. I love it. And by the way, I think you know that billionaires and rich people do a lot of charity work. And note, they do charity point-wise. A person who has cancer, for example, builds medical centers that fight the specific disease that he was diagnosed with. It's not a coincidence. These are those karmic seeds, and I hope you will start planting them.